Rachel, my friend, what is up?
I am good, thank you. It's great to be
Oh,
here.
it's so good to see. I was just looking. I was telling you earlier. Tanya and I have a painting of yours, and we look at it every day. It's in her office, and I often think, "How's Cornwall, England? What is it? What's it like over there? The cliffs of Cornwall. Oh my God!"
Oh, and the waves.
I know the waves are so beautiful. So, hey, for those folks who maybe have never been over there, tell them who you are, a little bit about what you do creatively and that sort of thing as we get started.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rachel, and I am a painter. So the clue was in the name, Rachel
Exactly.
Painter. It took me a while to get there, but I did get there. Yeah, so I paint landscapes of Cornwall in oil paint, and I really love like bold colour, and I really love painting light as well. So yeah, I'm a landscape painter.
I love it. I love it. And you actually traveled this last year over to the conference. We got to meet in
I
person.
did.
Wasn't that fun? I mean, just
Oh,
to,
it was amazing. And it was huge. Like, I'll talk about it a bit later, but God provided for that to happen. I never ever was not on my radar to come to America two
yeah,
years ago.
yeah, so cool. So talk about a little bit about your journey because I mean, have you always I love that you know your name prophetically painter, but have you always been a painter, grew up in a painting family or creative family or
Yeah, kind of. My parents are creative.
okay.
And as a teenager, like my passion and my dream was to become an artist. But like a long story short, I was going to go and do fine art at uni, and I got rejected from, so I kind of put a little bit of a stop to my dream.
Yeah.
There was a lot of other things going on at the time, and I just couldn't paint. And so, very long story short, I ended up going into full-time ministry instead. And I
And
always
you
had
are
this.
quite the preacher, by the way, I have to say. So this
I would say that again.
I said you're quite the preacher as well. You really you carry it. So
Oh, thank you. um, yeah, so that's where I ended up, which was never on my radar or plan. And I kind of always wanted to be an artist, as I said. And I ended up setting up a creative arts ministry and feeling like that was the dream that God had given me.
mm,
And yeah, I think God was definitely in that, but I was so focused on getting everyone else creative. I wasn't painting at all.
mm,
I was doing nothing creative for myself. And I think looking back, I become very afraid of creating myself, even though I was encouraging everybody else to be creative. Um, and I think I'd heard one story of a woman who just had a mental breakdown. She was living on a sofa. And for me, that was like all about financial insecurity,
yeah.
emotional instability. And I'm like, that is never going to be me. And so I ended up making all these decisions away from my dream. And it took the life as I knew it about 3-4 years ago, it kind of crumbled. And I ended up starting to paint again for myself. And that's
Right.
when I came to the program, because I felt like God was starting to nudge me and go, why don't you become an artist? And someone said to me, it's still a dream for you
Mm.
being an artist, isn't it? And it was when they said, isn't it? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is.
Forcing you to say yes, right?
Yeah, well, it was like, I'm not doing anything about it. What am I
Yeah.
doing? My name is Painter. Come on, like, time to step into this. But I sound quite buoyant about it, but at the time I was struggling a lot with disappointment. I felt like my life as I'd known it, I'd lost it, and I guess struggling with. I wouldn't have said it at the time, but I guess I felt like it had all failed. Like I'd let the dream that I had in this creative ministry, like it just didn't work.
Mm.
So the concept of me stepping out and going, okay, God, I'm going to trust you. I'm sensing you want me to pursue this art thing for myself. Like that was the big thing. It was for me, not for someone else.
Right.
And yeah, I guess it was just, I've kind of lost my train of thought now, but yeah, it was. I just felt like,
you really started coming back to the purpose of that had been in your heart for a long time. Yeah. You'd kind of veered away from it. We've all done that, I think,
yeah.
in our life. So how did the mentoring program come into that journey? I mean, where did we meet you in the middle of that and all that?
Oh, so it was Kate Green. She's in the program. I heard she was sharing on her Instagram, and I was like, man, I need this. And then I heard a couple of lives that you did, and I just felt the Holy Spirit on that, and it was really touching me. And I'm like, I've got to do this. Everything was aligned. As I said, everything kind of crumbled, and I was looking for something. And So I said yes. I was
Yeah.
scared. I was petrified. I think that's the biggest thing. I was so frightened, particularly around finance. I was petrified about spending too much money, or God, like, if, how are you going to provide for me through art? Do you want to provide for me through my art? Like, is that something you want to do?
Right.
And so I joined the program. And for me, having been in full-time ministry and kind of sensing God wanting me to come out of that, that was quite a scary thing for me as
Sure.
well. Creative to Thrive really kind of held my hand through that process. So right now, I've been in the program 2 years. I've just recently gone full-time as an artist, which I never ever thought that was going to happen.
All right.
No, no, and admittedly, it has happened a little earlier than I expected. But God's been good in confirming that I had a feeling it was going to come. Came
Yeah.
to America and for the conference, and God was starting to show me that the big changes were coming. So that's brought a whole lot of other new challenges for me being full time. But
Sure.
for me, the biggest thing that I've taken from this program, and I'm someone that needs always reminding, and I love encouragement, and the thing that the program does with the live Q&As, the mastermind calls and the biz chats, is that you're constantly being reminded of God's truth, that He is your provider. He wants to take care of you.
Yeah.
And I need that. I love to be reminded. Yeah, exactly. And I think, I mean, yeah, you can go off and do it on your own, but and having done that last 10 years, it's just hard work. It's lonely in that respect. And the community in the program is fantastic. Like, you get to meet people from all around the world, and you're with like-minded people, and it gives an opportunity to speak into your life and like bat around ideas. And yeah, I think that's been one of the hugest takeaways, which I hadn't expected, was the sense of community within. And it's online. I think that was the other thing I wasn't sure about, is, oh God, this is online. Like, God's really used the internet massively.
Absolutely.
In fact, my business now is predominantly online. I'm looking to build other marketing strategies offline, but God's provided for me through the internet. And I'm like, that's mad.
I love that. I mean, I love hearing that about you, just with the COVID year and all that, and so
Mhm.
many people that are in the mentoring program. This last year has been one of their best years, if not their best
Yeah.
year ever, because they were ready through the program to pivot
Yeah.
online with classes
Mhm.
or getting their website built or whatever. I wanted to revisit something. You know, there are a lot of people that I hear in the master class that talk about, they kind of shy away from the whole thing of starting a business, and they have this idea that, oh, if I do a ministry, an art ministry,
Mhm.
somehow that'll be easier, not as much pressure, that sort of thing. And one of the things I always tell people is that, you know, a business creates profit so that you can fund, you know, what it is that you do, give you the time, the freedom, the finances to do the thing that God's called you to do. With
Mhm.
a ministry, you get the opportunity to fund all that separately through, you know, donations and through out of your pocket and that sort of thing. Talk about the differences, that, because you've done both, like legit
Yeah.
both. What would you say to somebody that's kind of on that fence there and trying to figure out which one would be best for them?
Well, I guess right now it's very new thing. It's got, so I'd say the last 2 years in the program, it's been about building my business up and for profit. And one thing that I've loved about that is, and you talk about it a lot, is how your business can then be the vehicle that God uses to bless,
Yeah.
and I guess pour into.
Right.
So you want God to bless you so you can bless others. And
Absolutely.
for me, I've recently been invited in the new church that I'm in to paint live. So this is a very new thing. So God's starting to weave back in the ministry element
Yeah.
again. So, which is exciting, really special for me to watch him restore that a bit. And so for me, previously, it would be like, I've got to find the money to do that, or it come out of my own pocket, or that was a massive source of frustration before the program in my creative ministry that I used to have. But now, like, and there's a great teaching about pots and how you manage your money in the program.
Yeah.
That was revolutionary to me. And So now when I do my live art, I'm not like stressing over where the money is going to come from. My business is paying and covering the cost for that. So then it can be a blessing, and
Oh,
I
I
can
love
be open to how God wants to use that. I mean,
that.
that's still really early and new for me, but but just that kind of whole concept of how the business is feeding into, and God can
Yeah.
use it to bless other people. I hope
That's
that
so
answered your
good.
question.
I'm just, I'm glad you're getting that. I mean, I remember
Mm,
when I first started to get that, how revolutionary that was. Cause I think a lot of us as believers or people that didn't have a lot of business experience, when you come into this, business kind of freaks you out. It kind of is
yeah,
scary a little bit.
did.
And you're like, oh, I don't know. But again, just like God's brought you step by step, he'll bring you step by step through that. And I love that you're starting to experience that freedom and, the ability to walk in what he's got for you so that you can freely give with no expectation of getting back if you want to do ministry in that way, but you've still got a vehicle of blessing that's providing for you as well. And that's
Definitely.
that's so awesome.
And I think I'd also say, because I think one of the conflicts I had before the program is like, I wanted to do art, I wanted it to be a blessing to other people, I wanted to see God like
Right.
transform people through that. And actually, God is probably fulfilling that more through my business. And as I'm painting and having like that kind of conversation with him as I'm painting, which kind of gives the story in my artwork that I share in my marketing. Like, I'm finding that people are responding to that in a
Mm.
greater way than people were before, when it was just a full out ministry.
Wow. Isn't that
So
awesome?
it's, yeah, and it's like, it's always been my prayer. And sometimes I'm like, particularly at the beginning, I'm like, God, I want this to happen quicker. And but recently, like, I had one person message me the other day saying, I come and look at your artwork um, every day this week because it's making me feel good. And
Wow.
or people saying it gives them a sense of hope. And I quite like writing, so I kind of try and weave in like this hopeful story in my marketing. And so the marketing becomes quite creative as well. So
Yeah.
kind of weave all that in.
Well, I
So,
just love it. Again, you're really embracing the journey, and there's this convergence that begins to happen where everything we love and the story of us and what God's doing and the ministry and the business and all of that starts to weave together. And it doesn't happen overnight, like you're
no,
saying, but it does happen, and it will happen if you continue on that journey. And yeah, I,
it's been consistent, I think. And sometimes that can be difficult. There'll be days when you're like, oh, come on. But then when you look back, like I look back over the last 2 years and go, whoa,
yeah, the speed in
how,
which
yeah,
it,
whoa, how did that happen? And then
yeah,
I can remember some days where I'm like, oh, God, am I going anywhere? Like, but it does, but it's just a day at a time, one
yeah,
footstep at a time.
yeah.
So just to encourage everyone, it's a footstep at a time.
And then you look back 2 years later, and you're like, I'm a real
Oh,
artist. Like, I'm a real artist.
I know, it happened. What?
I just love it. I love it. Well, Rachel, you've been such an encouragement today. I'm watching the chat, and you got to go back and watch this because everybody's like, I just love her. Her story is so awesome. People from all over the world. But what? Just lastly, if there are folks out there that are on the fence and they're thinking, should I join? Should I not? Is this the right thing for me? What would you just say lastly to encourage them in their decision?
Oh, God, so much. But what happens if you don't do it? Like, what are you missing? What could you be missing out on? And I think God, for me, God has blessed me so much through
Mm,
this and in ways that I couldn't imagine. And I think
wow.
God, could have so much to show you, and he could use it to change you, like in here, but also through your art, and use you powerfully. And I say, just don't do it alone. Um,
Yeah.
don't do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. You can do it alone, and
Yeah.
God will still help you. But I think there's an acceleration that happens when you join in community with other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful. So I'd say, don't do it alone.
That's
Come
so good.
join us.
I've been saying that recently. You can go further faster when you're in a community, when you're with a mentor, and it's exactly what you're saying. So, Rachel, I love hearing your story. I love seeing all the things that God's doing in your life, and God bless you, and just
Right back at you.
continued success in everything that you're doing. So,
Amazing. Thanks for
thanks, my
having me.
friend.